If there's anything on this truck that has air or liquid in it, we gotta make sure there's no leaks. Oh my gosh.
In this video, we're gonna do a walk around inspection on this truck right here behind us. To my left here, I have Josh. Josh is a CDL instructor. He's driven for many years. He's also a state examiner. This pre-trip will not be about being the state examiner and passing your test. Will be about actually doing a proper pre-trip on a vehicle. Josh,
Absolutely.
Should we open the hood?
Let's open it up.
Let's do it.
All right, guys, I got my keys here for my truck. You always want to make sure you have the right key for the right truck. Don't drive somebody else's truck for the whole day across the country. So I verified my keys here. As I approach my truck, I'm gonna take a look at it, look for anything that's broken, damaged. I'm looking for any leaning, any obvious damage. If you see any obvious damage, make sure you guys report this stuff before you leave for your trip. You didn't damage it. You just showed up to the truck. Don't take responsibility for somebody else's damage. We're looking underneath the truck here. We're looking for puddles, oil, coolant, fuel, or grease, transmission fluid. Looking for dangling lines, hoses, various different problematic items that you may have. After that, we're gonna pop the hood. So let's get to it. Make sure you use 2 hands, nice firm grip. You're gonna pull on this. Sometimes these bumpers will get in the way. So just do the best you can, what you got. Oh my gosh. All right, let me try this again, all right. Watch this bumper here, you don't hit it with the grill. All right, our hood is open. We're gonna start over here on this side. All right, when we pop this hood, we're gonna start at the top and we're just gonna scan our way down, going left to right, top to bottom. Start here, this is our air cleaner right here. Make sure that you don't have any missing pieces on there. This is the housing that houses the air filter. If you feel like there's something damaged or broken, be sure to report it. We're gonna scan our way down. Here's our coolant reservoir. We wanna make sure we have safe operating range in our coolant reservoir. Remember guys, if that engine is hot, do not remove this cap. This is under pressure with really hot liquid. So hopefully you have a sight glass. If there is no sight glass, you're gonna have to wait for that engine to cool off in order to visually inspect it. This guy up here, this is our AC compressor. We're just checking all of our hoses and our clamps, just making sure there's not any excessive rubbing, any damage to the hoses, cracks, bulges, bends, cuts, leaks especially. If there's anything on this truck that has air or liquid in it, we gotta make sure there's no leaks. So we're looking for leaks, looking for damages. We're gonna work our way down, checking our clamps. Here's our alternator. It's up underneath this hose right here, this little pipe here. This alternator, what it does is it charges our batteries and it provides power for our engine, all of our lights, all of our components inside the cab of the truck. This alternator, of course, needs to be securely mounted. You don't want any cracks and breaks. It's got wires on here, generally red in color. You gotta make sure these wires, that they're nice and secure and they're not damaged or frayed. That is power running through those wires. If they were to short out, you could cause a spark. You could lose power of your engine. So merely make sure that those wires are looking good. We're gonna work our way down, checking clamps and hoses to our water pump, which is down below here. Got to make sure that water pump, it's securely mounted, right? Not cracked, damaged, it's not leaking. Okay, make sure everything's operating properly. If your water pump, you want to identify if it's gear or belt driven. If it's belt driven, check your belt. Even if it's not belt driven, check that belt. Make sure that belt is nice and snug. There's no rips, no frays. It's not loose, right? Make sure it's in great condition. That belt, it operates all your components on the front of the engine. If you lose that belt, you're in bad shape. You're in bad shape. We're going to continue to work down. We have our frame here, another hose, more clamps. Again, checking for leaks, damages, cracks, bulges. On this frame here, you're looking for any cracks, any rust, anything that's out of place, your bolts, your nuts, all that sort of different hardware that keeps everything together. Then we're gonna work down, we have a shock absorber down here. Again, verifying it's securely mounted. There's no leaks, it's not cracked, not damaged. Down to our leaf springs and our U-bolts, right? So we've gone from the top, left to right, scanning down all the way down to the bottom here. Now we're gonna work our way out. We're gonna work our way out here to our brake components, our hoses, our chambers, our clamps, our slack adjusters, push rods, right? Making sure they're all securely mounted, they're not cracked, they're not damaged, you're not missing any hardware, any components. Make sure that this brake hose right here is not crimped, kinked, or pinched, that it can supply air. You're also gonna go down in here and you're gonna check some more of your braking components. You got brake linings and you got brake drums down here. Make sure that you have a good pad on your brake linings. Another thing that they call them are brake shoes. You want to make sure they're not dangerously thin. I generally go off of a 1/4 inch. That's about the thickness of a number 2 pencil. Your drums are here. Your linings are inside your drums. You want to be checking your drums, making sure they're not cracked, not damaged. There's no dents or holes, that they're nice and secure in there. And I like to reach my hand down inside that drum and feel the drum, see if there's a lip or any damage in there in the surface where the linings touch the drums. All right, after I check all of my brake components, I'm gonna continue my way out, checking the inside of my sidewall here, out to the top of my tread, making sure my tread is evenly worn. There's no cuts or damage to the tread and the inside of the sidewall. We want to verify that our tread depth is a minimum of 4/32 up front here on our steer tires. It's also a good idea to make sure that they're not recaps, that they're virgin tires, they're nice and brand new. We're going to work our way down the outside of this sidewall right here, making sure, again, there's no cuts, damages, bulges, or cuts. If you have any indication whatsoever that your tire may be low on pressure, we have a valve stem and cap right here. You just remove the cap, get yourself a tire gauge, check your pressure. This truck is really nice. They have it printed right here on the rim, 105 PSI. Always check your manufacturer specifications on proper air pressure for your tires. Working our way down to the rim right here. I like to make sure my flange here is not bent or damaged. You hit a curb or something, it could bend it. And it seals in the bead right here, right? So if you have any damage on here, it creates a weak spot on that. Our rim, no cracks, no damages, no illegal welds on our rim. And then we're checking our lug nuts. We want to make sure all of our lug nuts are present. Make sure they're all tight. Make sure you don't have any cracks or distortions coming from these lug bolt holes. These lug nuts become loose. What happens is that rim will shake and you could cause damage that way. Good indications that your lug nuts may be loose are some rust trails. Water builds up on the underside of this washer, creates rust, and you'll actually see little rust trails flow down from those lug nuts. Shiny threads is a good indication that these lug nuts have been removed and then reinstalled. They could possibly been cross-threaded and not be secured properly. Coming down, last but not least here is our hub oil axle seal. This contains oil for the bearings for the front axle. You can check that oil level. There's going to be a level here through a sight glass. Sometimes they get painted, so you may have to remove this cap. And it's as simple as popping this rubber cap off, doing a visual inspection inside there, make sure your fluid level is at the proper range. Again, making sure there's no leaks, there's no cracks, there's no damage there on your hub oil axle seal. So this side we checked out. I'm checking my bumper, I'm checking my fenders, my mirrors as I'm walking around. We're gonna work our way around the front over to the other side. All right, you guys, let's check this side of the engine. It's very similar to the other side. I like to start up top, work from front to back, top to bottom. We're checking again all of our hoses, our clamps for damage, for leaks. Loose or missing clamps will be a real issue. This guy right here is a fuel filter / water separator. I got fuel lines, I got clamps hooked to it. We're checking those for leaks and damages, of course. I have our air compressor right here, verifying that it's securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, not leaking. We verify the type, how it's driven, that it operates the way it should. This particular air compressor is gear driven. There's no belt we need to check for the air compressor here. and then of course all of our hoses and fittings. I'm going to just follow everything towards the back of the block, checking all the various hoses and fittings, working my way down. Below here is my power steering unit. That's a pump that provides power steering fluid pressure to our gearbox, which helps us steer this giant semi-truck on the road. Again, verifying if it's gear driven or belt driven, it's operating, it's not leaking, it's mounted securely, there's no cracks or damages. I'm going to continue to work my way following this hose up here to my power steering fluid, making sure that it's in proper operating range. Now take note, on a lot of these power steering fluids, they have a hot minimum and a cold minimum. So make sure that you know whether or not it's hot or cold and check accordingly. Otherwise you could possibly overfill it and it will spill power steering fluid outside of the reservoir. We're going to keep working our way down and out to our gearbox. Needs to be securely mounted to the frame, no cracks, damages, leaks. You don't want any missing hardware on this power steering, on this gearbox right here. Very critical piece of equipment. If that comes loose, we're in big trouble. Our steering shaft right here, I like to give it a nice little twist, give it a little shake. You should have zero movement left to right when you shake that. It will twist because it's connected to your steering wheel. That is okay. You're just pulling and pushing, making sure that it's solid. Again, our frame is on this side, just as the other side. We're checking our frames for any cracks, damages, illegal welds, missing hardware. Working our way over here to our steering linkage. We got a pitman arm right here, pitman arm here, drag link, and then I'm going to get down in here. That's the tie rod. From the gearbox, we're going to go to our steering linkage, check our pitman arm, our drag link, and our tie rod. We're looking for any cracks, damages, bends, any worn areas on that which could damage its structural integrity. They all have wet bushings here. You want to make sure that they're not cracked, the boots aren't damaged, you're not leaking any grease. I'll grab them and shake them really hard just to make sure that they're not loose. Gonna step back here a little bit to our leaf spring hangers. Again, securely mounted, not cracked or damaged. Down inside of these hangers, between the hanger and your actual leaf spring, is a rubber bushing. You're gonna do the best you can and make sure that rubber bushing is not damaged, missing, or worn. Leaf springs here, again, securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, or shifted. U-bolts are securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, or missing. Checking our shock absorbers, making sure they're securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. Our air brake hoses, lines, and the couplings here, attaching them. We want to make sure they're securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. Remember, if it has any air or liquid in it, it cannot be leaking. That goes for the entire truck, front to back. Making sure that these aren't pinched, crimped. They can supply air to our brake chambers. Brake chambers are securely mounted. They're not cracked, damaged, dented, or leaking. We have no loose or missing clamps. The push rod coming out of the brake chamber here and our slack adjuster, we can't have any loose or missing parts. They've got bolts and pins to keep everything together. We don't want to see any damages, any excessive leaking on those push rods. Your brakes here, if you have the time, you grab your push rod and you pull on it. They cannot move more than 1 inch. You only check those if your brakes are released. Now, if you're going to release your brakes and be under the hood, you need to make sure your wheels are chocked. You don't want this giant truck rolling you over. All right, then down inside here, we're going to check our brake linings, making sure they're not dangerously thin, no cracks, dents, or holes. We want to verify there's no oil or grease on the inside of these brake components here. Grease does not work well with friction and heat. It will catch fire. Our drums are inside here also. Again, cracks, dents, holes, verifying that there's no excessive wear on those drums. Working our way to the outside here on the sidewall. No cracks, damages, bulges, cuts. To our tread, evenly worn, no cracks, damages, bulges, cuts. Again, verifying our tread depth is a minimum of 4/32 of an inch. We also want to make sure these are virgin tires. Okay, you can't have retreads up here on the steer axle. Outside sidewall, cracks, damages, bulges, cuts. Verifying our flange is in good operating condition, no bends, breaks. Rims not cracked, damaged, no illegal welds. checking all of our lug nuts. We can't have any missing lug nuts. We're looking for cracks or distortions from these lug bolt holes, and you want to make sure they're all tight. A good indication that they are tight is the absence of rust trails or shiny threads here. Shiny threads can indicate that they were removed and maybe not installed, cross-threaded when they were installed improperly. Hub oil axle seal, securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, not leaking. Verify your hub oil level either through the sight glass. If there is no sight glass, feel free to pop this cap off and do a visual inspection down inside of that hub. Okay, now that we've scanned our engine, remember this goes quite quickly when you can say all those words I said in my head. You just scanning and looking for things that are out of place. It goes relatively quickly. I check everything under the hood before I do anything. Before you start that engine, verify your engine oil level right here. There's a dipstick, right? You pull this bad boy out, okay? You wipe the dipstick off. You put it back in here like this. Pull that dipstick back out, okay? And then you're gonna look at this bad boy right here, okay? I'm gonna wipe a little bit of the oil off. You have a full line right here, and then down here you have another line, okay? This oil needs to be between add and full. I'm gonna wipe a little more oil off of this so you can read it. There's add, there's full. This oil must be in between these lines. If they're in between the lines, everything is okay. You're ready to go. If it's below this add line, we need to add oil. Typically it's a gallon. If it's above the full line, you need to let your mechanic know there may be an issue. Your truck may have fuel leaking into the oil or coolant leaking into the oil. This is of utmost importance. This could make or break a job. If you don't check your engine oil, these engines, they cost anywhere as much as $28,000 to rebuild, and you can destroy an engine simply by not checking the engine oil. Very important, always check that guy. And this is where the engine oil dipstick goes back in right here. All right, here we go. Make sure you push this thing all the way down and it's firmly seated. All right, we're ready to close this hood, hop up in the truck and get it fired up. Close the hood, use 2 points of contact, make sure nobody's underneath it. Close it down nice and softly. You're free to put your bumper back up with the pins. And latch down both sides of your hood. Okay, all right, so we're gonna climb up here in the cab. We've already checked everything under the hood, all of our fluid levels, so it is now safe to start the vehicle. Before I start any trip, I like to double check my driver vehicle inspection report, and I wanna make sure that there wasn't any faults with the previous driver who drove this truck yesterday or the day before. And I'm just gonna read it over, and I'm gonna look for anything that states that there was any defaults on this truck, tires, wheels, etc. And then when I have completed my inspection, I will also fill this out, and when I'm done for the day, I will sign it down here stating that I have inspected my truck. So this is a document you keep with you throughout the entire day. It's for your pre-trip, your mid-trip, and your post-trip, and it's a great way to communicate with your company if you need repairs done. You turn them in at the end of the day. Sometimes they're done on an e-log device, a tablet that's on your truck, and you can simply do it on the tablet on your truck. Also, we want to make sure that our hours of service are in compliant. If you're doing a manual log such as this, you want to go through, you want to verify your hours, make sure that you are legal and safe to drive on the road. Again, if you have an e-log device, it's quite easy to check on the e-log device. All right, we're gonna do a safety start on our truck. Get the truck warmed up, making sure we already made sure our oil level is at proper operating range. To do a safety start, verify the transmission's in neutral, depress your clutch, turn that key to the on position, and you're just watching all your gauges. These gauges, they cycle all the way to max, and then they come back down. What that's doing is it's calibrating these gauges for us. We're also checking our ABS lights. There's one on your tractor here, and there's also one on your trailer, which you will see out the mirror on the back of the trailer. So verify all your lights and gauges are working, and then we're going to start the truck. Once the truck has started, pay special attention to your oil pressure gauge. You need to make sure that your oil pressure rises within the first 5 seconds after starting the truck. If you have zero oil pressure, shut the truck down. There is something seriously wrong with your engine, and you don't want to cause any more damage by proceeding with running the engine. Voltmeter gauge, we're going to check that guy out, verify that our alternator is charging. Proper charge range is up to 14 volts, but anything above like 13 to 14 volts is a good charging range for that. Our water temperature gauge, if it's early morning, it's going to be cold outside, so you're not going to see any reading on that until your engine actually starts warming up. As your engine warms up, you'll watch that water temperature gauge slowly climb up. We got our RPM gauge right here, right? Shows us revolutions per minute. Verifying that that's operating. Our air gauges right here, just making sure that they're showing that the air supply system is working properly. There's an entire air supply test you should also conduct if you have not driven this truck before. Verify there's no leaks in your air systems operating properly. And last but not least, very important, fuel gauge. Do not trust your fuel gauge, okay? Always do a visual check on the outside of the truck. Open up that fuel cap, look down inside there, verify there's fuel inside of that fuel tank. These gauges aren't 100% accurate. If you're set up with a newer model truck, remember you will have DEF, diesel exhaust fluid. You want to make sure you have at least 1/8 of a tank, but maybe more depending on how many miles you're going to drive for that day. So verify that you're DEF. This truck does not have DEF, so we don't have to worry about that. Now that the truck's warmed up, we can verify that the rest of our components inside the cab of the truck work. We can check our headlights and our dimmer on our gauges here. All right, we can check our turn signal indicators. This is all part of a normal pre-trip for your truck. So I'm checking my left signal, right signal, my 4-way flashers, high beam headlights. Most trucks, this high beam headlight indicator will not work unless your actual headlights are all the way on. Then it will work properly. And just verifying that works. Again, you need to do an external inspection on all those lights in the operation. This is just an in-cab inspection for that. Also a really good idea, verify your heater and defroster is working. Especially cold winter days, you want to have that heater, but more importantly, you got to have that defroster, or your window is going to frost up and you're not going to be able to see out your window. In the summertime, air conditioning to me is very important. If you're sweating in here, sweat comes down, it gets in your eyes, it burns, it's hard to see. So also you could verify that your air conditioning is working, especially in the summertime. We got various switches up here. A lot of them control various features. You got your right window, you got your cruise control switch. Always make sure you're familiar with the truck that you're driving before you drive on the road. The last thing you want to be doing is driving down the road and trying to be like, hey, what does this switch do? What does that switch do? Learn it before you leave where it's safe and you're parked. From there, verify you have all your safety equipment, you got your spare electrical fuses, check the inside of your cab for your fire extinguisher, possibly your red reflective triangles will be inside the cab. If you don't find them in the cab, do some exploration on the outside. Open up your side box, check to see if your reflective triangles or fire extinguisher is in that side box, but make sure you have those and verified. Also, if this is a truck that you don't drive every single day, it's a great idea to verify you have your correct documents, your insurance and your registration. We keep in a pouch. Some folks will put them in a binder. They'll store them up overhead. Some will store them in a binder in the door. Just if you don't know where it's at, ask somebody before you leave. If you get pulled over, they're going to ask you for your insurance and your registration for your vehicle. They're going to ask you for your license, your permit, and your medical card. Make sure you have those documentations. Otherwise, you're gonna run into some issues if heaven forbid you get pulled over. We're gonna check our seatbelt right here. right? We're gonna make sure it's in good operating conditions, not rip frayed. It's securely mounted to the frame of the tractor. It latches in nice and securely. It is adjusted for us. Make sure your seat's in good operating condition. Give it a good little wiggle. Make sure it's not loose on that floorboard. You'll set your height and your mirrors to you, yourself, the driver. Take some time, learn your steering wheel. A lot of these steering wheels will tilt, and some of them will even go up and down. A lot of Volvos have a little pedal, and you can take that steering wheel and put it wherever you like. So depending on your vehicle manufacturer, depends on how that steering wheel works. It's a good time while you're checking your mirrors. You can check to make sure that all your brackets are tight, your mirrors are all secure to your vehicle, and there's no damage. Make sure your mirrors are clean. Very important. I think it's one of those overlooked things. Dirty mirrors, especially when the sun goes down, it gets dark outside, you get a lot of glare. It makes it very difficult to see. We got fender mirrors up on the front of the truck. We got mirrors on both sides of the truck. We want to make sure all of our mirrors are in great condition. Our windshield right here, we want to make sure that's all secure and tight. There's no obstructions up here, nothing blocking our view, no illegal stickers, no excessive cracks or damages on those windshields. We also want to make sure our windshield wiper arms and blades, we want to make sure those are operating correctly and smoothly. Make sure the rubber blade is not cracked, it's not coming apart, it's not weather checked. And it's always a good idea, you can check your washer fluid, right? Make sure it sprays on the windshield. It keeps your windshield nice and clean for you. You get lots of bugs and stuff out there on the road. And it also allows you to check to make sure the actual rubber on those blades are doing their job. We got to have a city horn, and we got to have an air horn right here. Honk, honk, toot, toot. Make sure that both of those are functioning the way they should. We've already checked our gauges when we first fired the truck up. We checked our indicator lights. We checked our heater. Everything in the cab of the truck is secure. Nothing moving around on the floorboard. All right. Okay. While the engine is running, we checked all of our gauges. We're gonna let this truck warm up. You always wanna let your truck warm up before you start driving it down the road. It's very good for it, especially if it's been sitting overnight and it's cold. While the engine is running, I'm gonna continue my pre-trip on the outside of this truck here. We already checked everything in the front before we started the engine, so we're gonna start right here at our mirror, making sure it's solid. Our grab handles, they're solid. Anytime you get in and out, checking our steps, again, looking for damage, making sure they're solid. They're well bolted to the truck. We got our fuel tank right here, okay? Make sure your fuel tank is securely mounted. It's not leaking. There's no cracks, damages, excessive dents, anything that could cause some leaking. Here's our fuel cap. You want to make sure it's tight and not leaking. Again, it's a good idea to pull this cap out, verify you've got a nice seal in there, and it's a good time to visually inspect that fuel down in there. Hello? Yep, lots of fuels in there. Okay, behind this guard right here, we have some exhaust. Our exhaust is right here. We're looking at our exhaust for any cracks, damages, leaks. We've got clamps that hold everything together, making sure there's no leaks on the clamps, making sure the exhaust is securely mounted. A good indication for leaks on your exhaust is your carbon soot. It's a black powder. I would show it to you, but we have no leaks to show you. But you're looking for any exhaust leaks, especially under the cab of the engine. Remember, you're in this cab all day long. If you got an exhaust leak, it's going to leak carbon monoxide into your cab of your truck, and it could cause some serious health risks. Here's our battery box. It's always a good idea to check your batteries underneath this box. They have latches here. You undo the latch, you can pull this lid off. Visually check that. We're coming down the side of our truck. We're checking any lights we have right here. The front, we will end with the front, check the front, so I won't forget that. Make sure your doors are all securely fastened. I have a light right here. I left all my lights on while my engine is running. That way I can verify all my lights are working. Again, make sure these lights are securely mounted, right? They're clean, they're functional, and they gotta be the proper color, all right? So red is in the rear, amber is elsewhere. Very, very important. This truck sometimes might not be seen very well at night. These lights are the only indication for other cars to be able to determine which way your truck is traveling. If they see red in the rear, amber in the front, they know the truck is going towards the amber side, and it's really helpful at night. Coming towards the back, I got another step, verifying it's secure, securely mounted. There's no cracks, damages. Everything is secure to my tractor frame. Remember, we checked it up front. Well, guess what? The frame runs the whole length of the truck. Checking the frame again. We've got cross members in here. Okay, we're making sure they're not damaged, missing, bent, broken, no loose or missing hardware. Down below here, we have a drive shaft. Making sure a drive shaft is secure, it's not damaged, bent, broken. And then we also have couplings, making sure my couplings are secure and there's no objects inside my couplings, no loose or missing bolts, properly lubricated. Another name for these are U-joints. They've been called couplings or U-joints. Catwalk right here, securely mounted, bolted to the frame. There's no cracks, no damages. This is designed to walk on. You don't want any debris that's going to fall off. Some people will use this as their personal storage area. You just want to be careful because you don't want anything falling off onto the roadway. All right, I'm going to come up here to the back of my cab. I've got my air and electrical lines here. My air lines, they're permanently attached to the truck here, and then they come over, and we've got glad hands over here that you can hook and unhook over here for the glad hands. I like to start on this end, checking my electrical line. There's a little latch here, and you want to make sure that latch is down so that electrical line does not come out of the cab. You've got your fittings right here, verifying they're not damaged, broken, or leaking. You're going to check your hoses all the way through, right? And this goes pretty quick when you're not explaining it. Looking for any cut, chafe, splices, any wear, any tear, any kinks, any pinch, any damage on that could cause you some issues while going down the road. Working our way up here to the front of the trailer, we have glad hands right here. These glad hands, you simply lift them up and they come off. There's a seal inside of here. You want to make sure that seal's in good condition. It's not cracked or broken. You want to make sure these glad hands, they lock in securely. Okay, again, left to right, top to bottom. Check the front of our trailer, make sure there's no damage. This trailer has a reefer unit on it. Obviously, I'm going to look for any leaks on that reefer unit, anything that could spill onto the roadway and cause hazards. We don't want any of that. On our trailer here, we've got our coupling system. There's an apron underneath here, and that's the bottom part. It's where the skid plate slides. We need to make sure that's not cracked, not damaged. We need to make sure we don't have any gap between our apron and our fifth wheel skid plate. Fifth wheel skid plate's right here. Fifth wheel skid plate, it's securely mounted to the platform, which is just below here. Securely mounted, it's not cracked, not damaged. Make sure it's properly lubricated. This one is definitely properly lubricated. And you also want to make sure you have no loose or missing bolts or pins right here. These guys, this is what holds your skid plate to your platform. You pull that pin out, the whole thing detaches from the truck. Very important. Skid plate, make sure it's securely mounted to the frame. This particular model has a sliding fifth wheel assembly, so that platform needs to be secure inside of these clamps and brackets here. You definitely don't want that coming off. Being a sliding fifth wheel assembly, we've got some locking pins right here, making sure they're fully engaged. You have pins on both sides of the truck, so you're going to want to check both of those pins out. All these bolts, nuts, any clamps or brackets you have, you want to verify they're all present, they're all secure, they're not cracked, not damaged, not missing. Okay, and then another part of the sliding fifth wheel assembly you'll see up top here is this little piggly wiggly line here. This is an air line. That's what engages and disengages your locking pins. You don't want this guy leaking, pinched, crimped, damaged, missing. Otherwise, your sliding fifth wheel won't operate properly. After we've inspected the entire outside of the fifth wheel coupling system, we need to verify that our release arm is in the engaged position, and then we'll go around the back of the truck and check our locking jaws and kingpin. All right, you guys, here we are checking our locking jaws and kingpin. You can see that solid metal bar that goes across and locks the kingpin in place. We want to make sure those locking jaws are fully engaged and that the kingpin is not bent or damaged. Again, being that we're on the sliding fifth wheel, always verify that you have proper clearance between the back of your truck and your landing gear. when you go around turns, if you bring these two close together, your mud flap will hit your landing gear while turning. So verify that real quick while you're on there. Then we're going to verify our suspension, very similar to we did up front. We're going to check our leaf spring hangers. We're going to check our bushings. We're going to check our leaf springs. This is a torque spring. This truck has air ride suspension. Hangers, bushings, leaf springs, U-bolts, shock absorbers. We're going to check our brake components in the rear of the truck. We have our hoses, lines, our couplings, our brake chamber, our clamp. We have a push rod and slack adjuster down inside here. And then we have our brake drums and our brake linings. Working on our tires here, same as we did in the front. Again, checking the inside sidewall, the tread. Remember the tread in the rear. It only has to be a minimum of 30 seconds. And you can have recap treaded tires in the rear. Checking the inner sidewalls, checking in between my duals here. The two tires bolted together, they're called duals. Making sure they're evenly spaced, there's no cracks, no damages in there, and there's no foreign objects, rocks and cats and stuff get stuck in there. Inner sidewall, we're going to work our way on the inner sidewall to the top of the tread. The outer sidewall, checking our flange, our rims, coming down here. Valve stem and cap, we definitely want one of those. You're going to make sure you check your tire inflation, manufacturer specifications, use your valve stem right there, valve stem and cap. Lug nuts, and this is an axle seal. It does look different than the one in the front. That's because this is a sealed unit. The fluid level for this axle needs to be checked at the differential itself, and it's done mostly wherever maintenance is done on your vehicles. All right, work our way back. We've got some airbags back here. Airbag mount, securely mounted, not cracked or damaged. My airbags, securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. We're gonna make sure those are all up to par. Another set of hangers, bushings, leaf springs. I got U-bolts, shock absorbers. I've got all my brake components, hoses, lines, couplings. I got a brake chamber, clamp, push rod, slack adjuster, brake drums, brake linings, working my way out. Inner sidewall, tread, inner sidewall again, checking my duals, evenly spaced, no cracks or damage. Another sidewall, tread, sidewall, rims, flange, valve stem and cap. I've got lug nuts and my axle seal, all verifying they are not cracked, damaged, bulged, cut, leaking, all that good stuff. Keep working our way down the trailer, checking my mud flap, okay? Securely mounted, not cracked or damaged. While I'm back here, I'm gonna check my lights on the rear of the truck. Same as I check the rest of the lights, only this is the back of the truck. They get to be red, okay? Red in the rear, amber everywhere else. I'm checking the side of my trailer, my lights, my DOT reflective tape, looking for damage, any cracks, any bulges, making sure my tape's securely affixed, it's clean. Checking my landing gear here, verifying that it's securely mounted, it's not cracked, damaged, not twisted. My crank handle is secure. Crank handle's on the other side. We'll check that on the other side. Make sure it's fully raised. There's no damage to the landing pads or any of the support frames. All right, this is a reefer unit. It does have a fuel tank. I would check that fuel tank the same as I did on my truck. Securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, not leaking. Cap is tight, not leaking. Work our way back here to the back of the trailer. Back of the trailer here, we got a whole nother set of suspension, brakes, and tires. We're going to check all this the same way we did up there on the front of the truck. Check our hangers, bushings, leaf springs, U-bolts. This particular trailer does not have shock absorbers. If it did, I would check those. It does have a torque arm right here. I would check my torque arm. I have my hoses, lines, couplings, my chamber, my clamp, push rod, slack adjuster, my brake drums and brake linings. I would check my tires, sidewalls, gap, tread. On the trailer, you are allowed a minimum tread depth of 30 seconds, and you can have retreads on your trailer tires. Outer sidewall, my flange, I have my rims, valve stem and cap, my lug nuts, hub oil axle seal. This is a great example of a hub oil seal that actually has a sight glass. This is my ABS light. It's the only amber light towards the rear. Make sure it's securely affixed. We verified that it turned on and then turned off when we turn the key to the on position. If the ABS light stays off, everything is working. If the ABS light stays on, that means you have something wrong with the ABS system, anti-lock brake system, for the trailer. Got a marker light in the rear. It's red, perfect, securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, clean and functional. Mud flap. Checking my mud flap, same as I did on the truck, securely mounted, not damaged. Come to the rear of the trailer. We're gonna check our clearance lights, our rear trailer lights, same as we check the rest of the lights. These do have to be red because it's the rear. We've got our trailer door here. I'm gonna make sure my door is operating properly. It's securely mounted, not cracked, damaged. Door and hinges. Verify that it opens and closes. Now before I leave, I always like to look at my delivery manifest and make sure that the cargo I have on my trailer is the correct cargo I'm supposed to be taking. Yep, save your routers a lot of headache. I've got a DOT bumper back here. I want to verify it's securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, bent, or broken. We're going to work our way down this side of the trailer here, verifying, checking all of our suspension, hangers, bushings, leaf springs, U-bolts, shock absorbers if equipped. We're going to check all of our braking components. Our tires, our rims, our lug nuts, our hub oil axle seal, valve stem and cap. Summarizing a little bit, when you just looking these things over, it's really quick. You can get down in here, take a quick peek, and you work your way right on out to the outside, checking everything out. Scanning the side of my trailer, looking at my lights, looking at my DOT reflective tape. I've got a marker light right here. Scanning, scanning, scanning. Here's my crank handle, verifying it's secure. Okay, we don't want that thing flopping around. Still scanning, scanning. I'm gonna hit up my door right here, same as the rear door. We're gonna open and close it, verify the door and hinges are secure and that it's securely latched with the safety latch here in place. We've got another mud flap. We've got more suspension parts, hangers, bushings, leaf springs, U-bolts, shock absorbers. I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna check them all out. Everything I mentioned before. And on this axle, all right, I got a light right here, scanning front to back, top to bottom, all the way down. I've got a splash guard here. Here's my chain hangers. Make sure I have the proper amount of chains for my trip. I got a cargo box right here, making sure it's securely mounted. Make sure it latches properly. I don't want any of my cargo coming out. Here's another box. I'm scanning. Got another exhaust pipe here. I can look behind the guard here at my exhaust. Look underneath for any exhaust leaks. Okay. Another set of steps. Fuel tank. Here's my cap. Do a quick verification of my fuel. Right there. I got my door, my mirrors, my hinges, my lights. Here's my other strap. Hood securely strapped in. We already checked everything here in the front except for the lights. It's quick and easy. Check my lights up top, scanning all the way down. My headlights, marker lights, my fender mirrors, making sure they're all operational. We work our way all the way around here back to our door. Guess what? We did not find any defects on this rig today. So we're ready to go. The truck is warmed up, the air is built up, everything is sweet and sound. I'm gonna take my DVIR, I'm gonna fill it out. And if I do find defects, I'm gonna make sure I write it down. If you find anything that is illegal to operate this truck on the road, just remember, it's your responsibility as the truck driver. You are the captain of this ship. You have to shut that truck down. Do not drive it on the road. That's your license, it's your responsibility to verify that everything is safe to drive this thing on the road. All right, thanks you guys for coming and listening to my pre-trip. I hope this helps you guys out. Remember, you guys are responsible for the safety of this truck, yourself and the others around you. Do a clean, thorough pre-trip and good, safe driving. Yeah, that was definitely drawn out.